The following top 10 Degrassi episodes list contains topics such as catfishing, child abuse, mental issues, rape, sexualization, cancer, and many other subjects that are not suitable for many viewers. The viewer discretion is strongly advised. Hey there, Heather Hurley. It's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to another Degrassi top 10 video. And this is a rehash of one that I did more than 5 years ago. Of course, the setup was different and me talking and a lot of things. Of course, one big difference is the hair. But basically, now that, I've lost a lot of hair. Thankfully, though, rehashing it works out quite well because um, I had a lot of hair and then I had like a lot of bangs and all that. It looked kind of creepy and all that. But now that, I have less hair on top, it actually works out. So anyhow, I decided to redo some of my top tens and made it a 2025 version and all that. So anyhow, um, I looked at what was the best Degrassi season premieres in history. Like I know I do like next gen stuff, and I should be like doing Degrassi Junior High and High and all that. Obviously, the first episode, Kiss Me Step, was iconic because we got to see Steph and Arthur, and then Joey, and then Snake and Wheels, and a lot of other people. And all that. And Stephanie thinks that winning student council president will make her popular, but now she has to work her butt off, and she feels bad about it. And then you got yourself the Degrassi High premiere, that season 3 premiere, in which Wheels loses his adopted parents. So anyway, I looked at all the stuff from Next Gen from season 1 to season 18, or as I call it, season Next Class season 4, because the original Degrassi iteration was 1 to 14, and then Netflix got it and had 4 seasons, so that's why it's going to be 15 through 18. I tried to do a poll, I didn't get much support, so I basically had to rank, all that. There were of the 2 polls I did was I was trying to like combine them and then make it top 10 or whatever. I ended up only getting what 5 total votes or something like that, or am I? No, I ended up getting like 3 total votes for 2 total votes for everything. Well, one of them got perfect in the other one, but nevertheless. So I'm gonna tell you the top 10 Degrassi season premieres in history and all that. All right, so let's start. Number 10 is Just Can't Get Enough from season 9. In this episode, we get to see Mia trying to do well, and then she gets a modeling career in Paris and doesn't know the state of her family and all that. Like she's going to Paris, but is her daughter going with her and all that? Mia's mom encourages her to take the opportunity, and then Peter, who was dating Mia at the time and actually becoming a decent person, actually is upset that Mia is leaving for Paris. Peter, of course, getting the rub, and not that way. But he got the rub in season 8 when Darcy goes to Kenya. Of course, that was when Sinead Grimes went to 90210. So Peter was upset that he was losing Mia to Paris and wanted to get in with Mia's group. So he decides to take drugs with them and all that and fails miserably and then finds out he's in trouble. So he makes a massive phone call. People shit on this because, Peter's 48-hour drug addiction and all that. But nevertheless, Mia goes to France. We don't know about Isabella, I think. I think her mom's taking care of Izzy, or Izzy's on her way to Paris. But Peter has someone in his loft that is above the dot, and that was Hatzalakos. So Peter calls Miss H, who actually was on leave. I thought that she had left, but she was on leave in season 8 to deal with her ailing mother in Regina, and Peter didn't want to go. Of course, I'll talk about that when I talk about the top 10 season finales. But the top 10 season premieres. is what I do. And what ends up happening is that Peter called his mom because he couldn't handle it and needed help. I mean, you can crap on Peter all you want, but at least he was willing to get help and all that. And I think he really got psychological help because, his girlfriends kept dumping him. All right. So number 9 is Uptown Girl, the season 8 premiere. And no, I'm not going backwards and all that. Basically, what ends up happening in this episode is, Degrassi has changed and all that. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention in the season 9 premiere that we saw the chef, and then inexplicably he's gone, and Hatzalakos comes back. Well, Hatzalakos now becomes principal, and I think she came back because her leave and all that, and Shep was gone. But I also have a theory that Shep may have gotten in trouble from the school board because he lent Jay one of the school buses, and of course that's when they went to Hollywood to try to get Manny her musical role. And yes, I will talk about that in the season finales. But the fact of the matter is that in season 8, the chef was being the new principal as Hatzalakos was off to Regina and all that. Unfortunately, though, he shows favoritism towards the jocks and the cheerleaders, has a fashion show, and calls Holly J a tasty little number. No, sorry, a hot little number. Yeah, calls her a hot little number, and Snake is upset by it. Of course, Shep's favoritism will be more prominent throughout season 8, but this is the season premiere. And basically, Holly J and Mia causing trouble. Holly J does not want Mia on the cheerleading squad because, Mia has to deal with Izzy and all that. But Mia's mom says that she will do everything she can to take care of Izzy and all that. Of course, there's a couple more subplots. Subplot number 1 is when we get to see the gifted class, which involves Claire, who is Darcy's sister, Ali, who is Sav's sister, and 2 characters we never knew before season 8. Casey, a troublemaker, but he's pretty brilliant. Why is he in the gifted class? And also Connor, who is Snake's godson, and all that. And he's happy that he'll be there. Now, Connor's family ties are in question, but a lot of people said that maybe it was Lucy who had Connor and all that, and that he was being a godson and all that. At first, I thought, oh well, I know his brother had a kid, and maybe they adopted a kid and he becomes a godfather. But no, technically, to be a godfather or godmother, you can't really be related and all that. Because I know for a fact that my brother, with his 2 kids, the godparents are not related to him whatsoever. So anyhow, the core 4, and basically they were trying to get the magic of Emma, Manny, Toby, and Sean together, if you will, with these 4 characters, but it didn't go over so well. I think people were like, it's been done. And the other subplot is when Emma actually is in Smithdale with Manny and Liberty. A lot of people said, wasn't Liberty in Banting? But Liberty didn't go to Banting because Daving was there. And of course, the fallout from season 7's season finale, which I will be talking about in this top 10 season finales. But logically, Liberty, I guess, didn't want to be near Damien. Unfortunately, this episode proves how much Emma is upset with Manny and Liberty seemingly moving on from her. Because Manny and Liberty are in the same dorm and Emma is not. Well, Emma and Manny were supposed to be in the same dorm. So Emma, instead of waiting for the school to fix this problem, fixes the problem herself and gets Liberty dragged in. Emma tells Manny she just wanted Manny. She didn't want Liberty at all. Unfortunately, they all think that Emma's gone cuckoo bananas, as the famous line would be. Emma then realizes she needs to change and tries to change her tone. So that was that episode. Number 8 is Summertime, aka the Paris episodes from season 13 of Degrassi. And actually, this is the youngest of the top 10 season premieres because I didn't like any of the season premieres from Next Class downwards. But anyway, Summertime is when everyone's planning on a trip to Paris. The school's funding it and all that. Maya almost doesn't go because her mom doesn't want her to go because of her acting out in the shape of Cam Staff, the wake of Cam Staff. Claire was ready to go with Ali and all them, but unfortunately for Claire, she ended up getting cancer and she had to lose her hair and that bald cap. Ugh, she looked like some alien, like the Coneheads. But the fact of the matter was that Claire will now have to deal with cancer and with Eli off in New York. She's worried about things. Spoiler alert, her cancer goes into remission, which is pretty good and all that. But the fact of the matter is that, Zoe, this new girl, comes into the clique. She was once an actress on a teen drama, but unfortunately, she got kicked off for illicit drugs and all that. And basically, she tries to cozy up to the Degrassi people. Tristan wants Maya to be his girlfriend so that Tristan hides his homosexuality. And Maya's okay with it. Unfortunately for Maya, um, Tristan and Maya would not be much in season 13 because Tristan gets upset with Maya telling on Mr. Yates for groping him and all that. But yeah, and Ollie meets Leo, a charming guy, and falls in love with him. Everyone said this was bad for Ollie's character because she was doing so well. She was fixing her problems, but now she ends up with Leo. Leo ends up in Canada, and Ollie, on her 18th birthday, marries Leo and all that. I thought that, you know, Allie and Leo was a legal relationship, but Leo becomes abusive to Allie. Basically, the marriage is annulled, and Leo goes back to France. Just telling you right here, right now. Number 7 is Here Comes Your Man from season 6. So this was the episode in which we actually find out that Pema, the Peter-Emma relationship, which was so bad in season 5 on both sides. Peter for blackmailing people and Emma for wanting to be with Peter, even though that Peter was a bad guy towards Emma. So what ends up happening in season 6 is that, Pema's fine. Peter gets a new car for his 16th birthday from his dad, who basically pays him off and all that stuff. And then Sean, for some strange reason, there is no warning. He comes back to Degrassi. He wants to finish his schooling. He actually fixed his PTSD problems from season 4 when he and Rick had that gunfight. So what ends up happening for Sean and all that is that, he's there and Emma has feelings for Sean, even though that she's supposed to be with Peter and all that. So Peter tries to cozy up to Sean and all that, but then learns from Manny that Sean and Emma had a history and all that. And Peter freaks out. Was this the street race? Yes, this was. That's right. And then Emma doesn't give a straight answer to Peter about the Sean situation, so he decides to take it upon himself to fix the problem by planting drugs in Sean's locker, get Sean expelled, and Emma believes Peter, saying, Peter told me he didn't do it. What am I supposed to do? Sean's not happy with Emma being on Peter's side and all that. Of course, he decides to street race Peter mostly for Emma's heart, and unfortunately, he hits a pedestrian, and he wants to help the pedestrian, but Jay tells him, go, leave. They're going to go easy on Peter, but not you. You're running the risk of trouble, and forces Sean to leave. Sean wants to hide with Emma. Emma says, you have to confess everything, and so he does. But there's a reason. Emma would have been in deep trouble for harboring a fugitive. If they were looking for Sean, then Emma could have got in trouble for harboring him. So then, I don't know. I don't know what the subplot in season 6 was. I think Ashley coming back and all that. But yeah, this was huge because, the Pema situation. I feel in my mind that they just wanted to break up Pema because of how unpopular it was during internet message boards that Emma would be with Peter. And yes, it would take the next episode for Emma to finally snap out of it and go towards Sean and distance herself from Peter. Number 6 is Ghost in the Machine from season 4. I know you'll be probably thinking this is too low, but anyhow, Ghost in the Machine is the episode which Paige finally gets her answers and gets to the trial for Dean raping her and all that. The fact of the matter is that, she finally going to get her justice, but then she has cold feet about it, saying that maybe it's not a good idea and she'll probably have to testify about things and Spinner would get mad. But Spinner tells her that she needs to get Dean and all that. And I think he was understanding of what she was going through. So she goes on trial and all that. Dean's lawyer presses her for stuff, but she says it with no backlash whatsoever. So basically, she was honest and truthful and all that. The judge commends Paige for her bravery, but unfortunately, due to lack of physical evidence, Dean has to be off scot free. Dean's lawyer even looked shocked at the verdict and basically looked at Paige with an "I'm sorry" look. And basically, Paige loses. Paige loses her head and decides to swipe Spinner's car and hit Dean's car with that car as revenge. Unfortunately, though, Spinner is in trouble because it was his car. Spinner decides to confess for Paige, but then Paige decides she can't be who she was. So she goes to the police station, meets Dean, and then basically tells Dean, I'm going to confess. That's what good people do when they do something bad. But Dean is basically still white boy privilege and basically saying, you just want to be with me because you are going after me. You want to see me and all that. If you didn't want anything to do with me, you didn't have to do this trial. Basically, he had no remorse whatsoever. There was a subplot, and the subplot was that Craig got an inheritance check from his late dad, the dad that beats him. And I will talk about that in the season 2 premiere when it comes up on the list. But the fact of the matter is that he wants to buy a guitar. Joey asks him for money because his business was failing and all that, and he might have to put the house up for sale. But Joey realizes that it is Craig's money. But Joey could have suggested to Craig, maybe it's a good idea, and we'll work something out. But Joey basically says, everyone wants money from me. And a partial subplot, in a sense, an inadvertent subplot, was that when Craig and Ashley were talking in part one of the season premiere, Radich and Armstrong have a conversation in the background in which Armstrong wants school supplies from Radich, but Radich doesn't have the budget for it. And of course, every teacher wants a piece of the budget pie, and Radich doesn't have it, saying that the budget's been cut a little bit. I don't have much to go about. Because a lot of people actually do think that that conversation was kind of why Raj let Rick back in the school so that they could get a better GPA and better funding. But Degrassi, I think, got penalized for funding because of the whole Rick situation and the students taking the cause and bullying Rick and all that. I mean, it's understandable. I mean, Rick should never have been back at Degrassi in the first place, but stupid school board policy. Am I right? All right, number 5 is Standing in the Dark from season 7. The reason why this is high up is because of the main plot. So the main plot in this episode was that Darcy was actually in love with Peter and all that. And that was another cancerous relationship, if you will, with Peter. Season 5 was with Emma, season 6 was with Darcy. Peter gave Adams racy pictures of Darcy for revenge or some kind of stupid reason. But the fact of the matter was that he shouldn't have done that. And basically, he gets under Darcy's skin and, his community service and all that. He plays with Darcy's emotions, even though Manny and Emma warn Darcy about Peter. Peter says they're just jealous. So they're together. Hatzilakos is okay with the relationship, but not Darcy's parents for obvious reasons. I mean, come on, it's Peter. And what he did to frame Darcy for pictures, why would she be with him? So Darcy decides to fake sick to get out of a church retreat and then goes on a ski weekend with Manny and Peter. And it all goes well until Darcy goes to the bathroom and then someone slips something in her drink. She drinks it and then basically she gets violated. She thinks she has sex with Peter, but it's not true. There's some kind of rapist and all that. Manny tells her about it. And then Darcy just doesn't know what to do. Darcy gets stripped of her purity ring by the Christian club because she had sex, even though that it was not her own fault. However, Peter gives her the purity ring back. Why am I babbling my words? Saying that it just didn't count. Unfortunately, though, later in season 7, Darcy falls off the rails and basically self-loathing and slits herself in the shower. Of course, that's why I had to do the discretion warning. But the fact of the matter was that, and she almost jumps off the roof too, because she accused Snake of something bad, because she just didn't want her parents to know that she was raped, because then, she had sex and she's supposed to be this goody-goody Christian girl and all that. She finally kind of gets it back with like spirit camp, and finally, hey, you know what? She's better now. There was a subplot, and the subplot was that Lakehurst, for some inexplicable reason, merged with Degrassi. Well, because they had a fire, and they never talked about the fire. And in fact, after the first few episodes, it's like, who did the fire? Why was there a fire in the first place? Some say partly electrical. Some say even Jay may have had a part to play with it. Knowing that guy, I wouldn't doubt that. But anyway, Lakehurst has to move in with Degrassi. Toby's, of course, upset because Lakehurst, kind of inadvertently killed JT and all that. And Johnny DeMarco had to go to Degrassi, even though he could have found another school. And then we get introduced to Holly J, Sav, Anya, and a few other characters like Shantae. No, not Shantae, because Shantae was there in season 4. But basically, it was kind of a nod to basically have like new characters in case Degrassi got renewed past season 7 that they could carry on. And carry on they did. Number 4 is Phoenix from season 5. And this was when Manny decides to get a boob job to get more roles for her acting career because her agent said that it was a good idea. So Manny tries to go through with it, and she has more drama on her because Emma actually talks about this boy named Peter, saying that it's the first boy she liked since Hurricane Sean blew her emotional trailer park. If you get the context, it basically means that, Sean played with Emma's emotions in season 4 and Back in Black and moved back to Wasaga for PTSD, and Emma just couldn't move on. That's kind of why she was with Jay and all that, because she needed the connection to Sean. We all know that we're not stupid. But the fact of the matter is that Emma wants to be with Peter and all that. But Peter has eyes for Manny, and Peter invites Manny back to his apartment after a party in which he gets Manny drunk, and then Manny flashes him saying, I'm going to be famous. So basically put, um, Peter wants to show the video to everyone. Manny and tells Manny she can have it for $3,000. He wants a new camera. So Manny decides to get rid of her boob implants and all that, but it's on her dad's credit card, which of course means that her dad will know about it and all that. So she can't come up with the money, and then she figures that maybe Peter and her want to go. Peter needs to go on a date. So basically, what ends up happening with Peter is that, um, so well, because Peter wants Manny, and Manny tries to get Peter with Emma, but unfortunately, um, the money's not there, so Peter gives it to everybody in Degrassi and all that. And Manny is kicked off the spirit squad, and basically she has familiar problems, like problems with her family. Her dad blows up about her breast implants and all that because it's on his credit card, and he's gonna know. And calls her a loose woman. Why are you trying to sexualize yourself? And I didn't work hard. Saying I didn't work hard to have you be a loose girl. And he's got a point. Like, I know Joseph is a prick, and Manny's mom is bad for being submissive, but in most cultures, that's what the problem is. That's what the norm is. Pathetic. But the fact is that, yeah, Joseph was an immigrant who wanted to get his family a better life in Canada, and I understand him. And he does have a point, saying that he doesn't want Manny degrading herself, and basically calls her a slut. And he went about it the wrong way and basically kicks Manny out. And Manny, of course, is mad that her mom refuses to help. So Manny's down at her lowest point, and Emma actually figures it out and decides to let Manny stay with her Snake and Spike and Baby Jack. Of course, Emma is problematic because she basically yells at Manny for trying to steal Peter from her, even though that's not the truth. And Emma jumped to conclusions yet again. I mean, it shows how desperate Emma was for a boy if she was willing to try to be with Peter. Peter only got 6 weeks detention. We find out that he is Hasselhoff's son, and everyone is shocked and all that. Unfortunately for Emma, she falls under Peter's spell, and basically that showed how desperate she was post-shooting. Fighting on it. Number 3 is Mother and Child Reunion from season 1. So in this one, it's the first ever Degrassi Next Gen episode. It's the first Degrassi episode of any kind in 9 years. And yes, School's Out counts. So in the 9 years, there were some talks about Degrassi and all that. coming back. In 1999, CBC's Jonovision with Jonathan Torrance, the other guy who was on Trailer Park Boys, basically decided to have a conversation with old Degrassi junior high / high actors and all that. And they pitched the idea maybe about a retirement home, maybe in their adult lives, and maybe something to do with children. And it looked good. But somehow in 2001, when the show started, CTV, another major Canadian network, took over the rights from CBC. CBC had Degrassi for the longest time. And, for years, they actually put it on a Sunday death slot after Fresh Prince. And there was this panel in which Mr. Radich, aka Dan Wood, said that if we're lucky, it'd be like Sunday afternoon, unless CBC had like left-handed lipstick lesbian curling. I can't remember the clip, but that's what Raj said. Basically saying that amateur sports would have pushed Degrassi off the schedule. But the fact of the matter was that, CTV now had the rights. And the first episode was fantastic. The subplot was the Degrassi High people having some kind of reunion and all that. We got to see some old characters from the past. And the main plot was that Caitlin was engaged to Keith, but Keith doesn't want to be with Caitlin, and Joey chimes in and decides to punch Keith and basically tell Caitlin that he doesn't want her, as in Keith. And then that's when we Canadians saw, but you Americans had to go to the deleted scenes and see about Wheels apologizing to Lucy about the accident that caused Lucy to temporarily be blind, and then for her to fix her problems after 9 years. And Wheels spent 9 years in jail for what he did after killing that kid, because everything was more lax in the 90s, of course. And apologized, and Lucy believes him. But the main plot is when Emma is talking with this boy named Jordan online on the computer that she shares with Spike. And she tells Manny about it, and she falls in love with Jordan. And then Jordan wants to meet her at a hotel. JT and Toby, introducing this episode, basically say that this isn't a good idea. And Manny said, and Emma's like, I know Jordan longer than you. I'll be fine. Caitlin tells her to go for it without realizing the context. So Emma does. Manny finds out that Emma was bluffing to her, and then gets JT and Toby to help with computer stuff, and then look at the emails, and then they find the exact room where they are. Emma then finds out that Jordan is this middle-aged man who posed as a boy and all that to get on Emma. And thankfully, though, JT, Manny, and Toby tell Spike and Snake about the situation, and they fix the problem. And Emma realizes she's made a dumb mistake and all that. And Spike tells Emma, you can tell me anything you know. And Emma promises to. But unfortunately, Emma has internalization issues. And this is partially why she was a little freaked out over Liberty having Coach Armstrong comfort her. And she wasn't sure about it. And Manny says, I'm sure it's nothing, Emma. And, unfortunately, Terry overhears it. And basically, in kind of a 180, because Emma's the one who always overhears conversations. Terry spreads the rumor. Emma gets blamed for it. Emma tries to fix the problem. Liberty says, you could have had Armstrong lose his job. Emma could have probably said, well, she obviously wouldn't tip her hat saying that, she was almost taken advantage by a guy. And she was worried from Liberty. And then the frenemy stage happens. Just saying. Number 2 is When Doves Cry from season 2. In this one, it's when we are introduced to Craig, who likes photography. I always struggle with that word, pronouncing it. But nevertheless, Craig is a decent guy who Emma falls in love with. Emma and Sean were in item season 1, but Sean ruined it by pushing Emma during an argument with Jimmy. So she fawns over Craig. Of course, Emma also is babysitting Joey's little kid, Angie, and all that, and doesn't take money from Joey, saying that, I don't really need a lot of money. But Joey says he'll make sure that Emma gets paid back in some way. But Craig is taking pictures of those two in the bushes and all that. I was like, what the hell? We find out that Craig's dad basically has a short temper and beats up Craig for almost no reason. I mean, being late for dinner, okay, fine. You can yell at him, but why would you put your hands on him? So Craig is living through a cycle of abuse. His camera gets broken, but then his dad gives him $3,000 for a new one. and then he wants to take Angie to British Columbia. It's like, what? Does Craig have an affection with this Angie girl and all that? It was kind of puzzling. Of course, we would actually also find out in the subplot that, you know, Spinner's upset because now Degrassi's now more of a high school. It was supposed to be like a middle school, but now it's for the high school people and all that. Saying 4 more years of this stuff? Yeah. But nevertheless, Craig and Sean talk, and then Craig takes a skateboard and wants to play chicken with a train and all that. He's on the train tracks. Sean stays from that. Thankfully, it all works out. Sean and Emma then go to Joey with the information. Joey wants Craig to stay away from Angie, but then pieces start to fall. They tell Joey that Craig's dad is the problem. And Joey's like, really? And then Angie pipes up saying that he has purple bruises, but says a dinosaur did it to him. And then Joey finally takes everything positively and then realizes that he needs to find Craig. So he and Sean go find Craig. Emma looks at old photos and then makes a connection. Maybe Craig's added the headstone for his dead mother because, Craig's mom's dead and Craig's dad abuses him. And then guess what? It's Julia Manning. Okay, that's beautiful. But then we soon learn that Julia Manning was actually Joey's wife when she died. So Julia left Craig to be with Joey. And it's possible that Albert, Craig's dad, uses Craig as a punching bag because of his emotions about losing Julia and all that. So then Joey allows Craig to stay with him for a while until Albert gets his problems fixed. Albert then comes back in the season 2 finale, which I will talk about in this top 10 season finales, and basically tries to get Craig back and all that. And it makes sense because Craig and Angie are step siblings. Maybe that's why Craig has the affection for her. And finally, number 1 is season 3's father figure. In father figure, Spike's about to have her kid and all that. Thankfully, she didn't abort it. She puts Emma and Snake through drills and all that. Emma is unsure about things, but Snake says, don't worry, Emma, it'll all be over soon. What's the subplot? Oh, yeah, the subplot was when Spinner wanted Paige to get a better locker. So he does the barter system with a lot of students and all that. Unfortunately, though, that's illegal. Radich says that the locker thing is there for a reason, for safety concerns, and basically you're not allowed to switch lockers without consent from the staff. And basically wants Spinner to give everyone back their locker. And that's when we finally see Radich without the Chuck Norris facial hair and just like no facial hair at all. It kind of added to a shift in his character. But season 4 would bring out the worst in him. Regardless of that, Emma then wants to find out about her dad because, she's going to have a new sibling and all that. But Spike is of little help. And Snake tells Spike she's going to find out sooner or later. So then she finds out about Shane McKay and finds he's a doctor. Nope, he's a black doctor. Although, maybe she's mixed race. Could make sense. But then she's like, no. And then goes through Snake's alumni shit and finds Shane McKay in Stouffville, which is a part close to Toronto. But then she gets Craig to join her to go to Stouffville. And she meets Shane McKay in a home for the mentally deficient and all that. Now, do you remember when I talked about it for number 3, I talked about Jonovision with Jonathan Torrens? Guess who played Shane in this episode? Yes, that Jonathan Torrens. The guy who kind of got Degrassi, the ball rolling on new Degrassi. Inadvertently, of course. But the fact is that he gives a good performance and, he's brain damaged and all that. He lives in a home. He fidgets a lot. And Ella gives him her address in case he wants to come visit. Not knowing the whole scope of the homes. Unfortunately, though, because of the reunion, they missed their next train from Stouffville to Toronto, meaning that they're stuck. Joey comes in to bail them out and basically wants to know why they're in Stouffville, and Emma says, to find my dad, and then Joey looks concerned. Unfortunately, Spike goes nuts over Emma doing this stuff, and Emma says, why didn't you tell me about Shane? Why didn't you do something about Shane? I was 14. So basically, you could see a rift. But Snake the next day pulls Emma aside and tells her the story about Shane and the fact that he wanted to be there for Emma and Spike, but unfortunately his parents didn't want to because his dad was an Anglican minister and that would be a controversy. So basically they wanted to get rid of Shane in the worst way possible, but Shane wouldn't go. So Shane goes to a concert, takes acid, and then either jumps off or falls off the bridge. We don't know. I feel like he probably fell off the bridge. That's just me. But the fact of the matter was that, you know, Shane was alive. He had bad brain functions, and his parents put him in a home for brain damaged people because they just could get rid of him easily. And I think the guy who made him take acid actually had to help him out or something. I think it's got some punishment. But nevertheless, Shane does try to get better and all that. We see him in a few episodes of Degrassi High, but it's just not there. So basically saying that, Spike should have told you that, and you have a right to get mad, but she's just trying to protect you and all that. And then Emma, with her fuzzy memories of the hospital when she was 3, realizes that the hospital was not like a medical hospital, it was a mental hospital or some kind of hospital. So she realizes this. But then, Spike goes into labor because Shane somehow escapes the home and goes to Emma's house and is upset that Shane Spike's with Snake. So fortunately, Emma calms down the situation by telling Shane that if you hurt my mom, we will never speak again. And Shane stops and then knits something for Spike and then goes back to the home. And everything's fine. Spike does apologize to Emma for not letting her know the stuff, and Emma gives her a pass. And they're a happy family. Unfortunately, though, this was a massive missed opportunity because we never get to see any mention of Shane or that dynamic ever again. Like Emma does knit stuff in season 6 and calm her down, but they never make the connection with Shane unless you're a diehard Degrassi fan. But yeah, this episode was big because it brought Shane back. It was like the big question is Emma's going to find out about her dad eventually. Like, was that the right move by Spike? Answer is no. She should have told Emma a few years earlier. And Emma definitely probably, after hearing he would be brain damaged, I think Emma would probably not want to be around him. So that's just Emma's personality in the first few seasons. So anyway, that's all I've got for these top 10 season premieres. Tomorrow, we go finale style. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. Adieu.